Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to start going over value, or another word for value is also shading. So I need your name up at the top. This unfortunately isn't going to be as dark as our other sheets just because I'm working in pencil, because it's a lot easier to do in pencil versus ink. And I pop in my period. Okay, so whenever you're creating value, value is how light or dark something is. And if you need that definition, you can always add it up right here on the top. And so our first exercise is 1, use a pencil to create 5 values going from the darkest dark to white with 3 grays that are in between the boxes below. So if this one's white, we don't have to do anything to it. And one thing that helps me whenever I'm working on this is I actually label them, because it'll definitely help us with this exercise down here at the bottom. So I have 1 for white, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 is our darkest dark. It's the blackest thing that we can do with our pencil, and we have white. So I'm just going to start off with my black, and whenever I'm making a black, if you think about pushing your pencil really hard to the point where the lead doesn't break, but it's about ready to, that's what you're going to have to do. So your finger is going to look like this. My fingertip is more or less white. I pushed out all the blood out of it, and my finger makes this little V shape right here. And I push really hard, and I make sure all my pencil lines get really close together. Once you go and fill in the box one way, you can go in another direction, and that helps fill in any of the white spots that are left behind. Get up to the edge. Finish out the rest of it. It's always good if you turn your paper. The more you do that, the more coverage you get and the better it looks. Okay, I got the darkest dark that I can possibly get. So it's nice and rich. Number 3 is normally whenever we push our pencil like we're normally writing, and 4 is kind of the step in between. So to help me, I'm actually just going to do what I do normally. So this is me holding my pencil. My finger has a nice curve. It's not white at all. I'm just kind of pushing average. And again, try to make your pencil lines nice and even. And this is a lot easier if you have a normal pencil versus a mechanical one. Make sure I get all my pencil lines nice and even, and it's okay if you go outside the box. You can always clean it up at the end. Go my different direction to help make it nice and even. Catch those edges. Okay, so if you went outside the box and you're ready to clean up, you just take your eraser and clean up those edges. It really doesn't matter so much on number 4 just because we're going to put a darker value there anyway. Okay, so I got a nice number 3. Number 4 is a step in between. So I have to push a little bit harder than 3, but a little bit less hard than 5. So your finger is going to have almost a V shape. It's not that nice curve that I had at 3. It's going to be straight, but I'm only going to have a little bit of white here, so I'm not pushing as hard. So when you're adding value to objects, that helps create like the illusion of depth or that it has volume. So when we're working on the sphere at the bottom, it's going to look like the sphere is round when we add value to it. And if you don't notice a nice step in between, then you just have to keep rubbing over top of it just to make sure that it's nice value difference between the two. And then if I feel like cleaning up my edges, I can. And then I got my number 4. So you can kind of see that this one is in the middle, this one's a little bit darker, and this one's my blackest black. Now the tricky part with number 2 is we're going to have to get really loosey-goosey. So make sure that your hand's nice and loose. That pencil's about ready to fall out of your hand. And this even helps me. I just lift up the paper, and I just make light little marks that just barely even touch the paper at all. just as long as my pencil lines are connecting to one another, I'm creating a value number 2, which is a nice step in between 3 and my white. So this is like whenever you're doing a t-shirt or drawing a piece of paper and you need to add a little bit of shading, but you don't want it to like overpower and make it look like it's a different value than a regular white shirt, because you don't just have a straight white shirt. Never. There's always going to be some sort of value on it. Okay, I got my number 2. So just a little bit of value. It's a little bit darker than the white. So now what we're going to have to do for number 2 is use a pencil to create 5 values, blending smoothly from the darkest dark to white with 3 grays in between the boxes below. So what helps me is I just draw my lines in between. So I know about where I need to start dragging these values down and transition, or create a nice smooth transition in between these. So I don't have a hard line anymore. I have a nice soft transition, like if I'm looking at a hallway and I have a nice light right by me, but it gets darker as it goes away. So it's these nice smooth transitions between the brightest bright where I'm standing and the darkest dark at the end of the hallway. So I'm going to start here because we still have white here. We have our darkest dark here. So I'm just going to start making my nice rich black. Go back and fill in on my whites. Pushing as hard as I can, making that V shape, and my fingertip is white. Okay, now I'm getting really close to that line, so I don't push as hard. So you see I'm kind of slowing down a little bit and I'm pushing a little bit less hard, so I'm getting in between a 4 and a 5. So now I'm going to show you guys a technique what I call press and flick. So I'm pushing really hard, I'm using the same value as my 5, and I'm pushing and I'm flicking out. I start at the bottom, or you can start from the top or in the middle or wherever you want, and I just flick out. This helps create a value that goes from my dark dark to my 4. Doesn't have to be perfect and even. It's even okay if you leave some white sections in there because you're going to catch them later. So I'm just pulling and flicking out. It creates this nice feathered edge that makes it easy to blend into. That just covers over the section where I have this arrow. Okay, so now I got to match my 4. We're going to go back in, do the exact same thing. Fill in that value of 4. Make sure I match it as best I can. And this takes a lot of practice, so I don't expect you guys to get it, first thing. This is the only worksheet we're going to be working on today. That way you guys have plenty of time to practice. Go back over it in a different way. Get it nice and smooth. Now I'm going to do my press and flick. Now you got to do not as hard as your 5, but you got to do value 4, press and flick. So I'm pushing a little bit less hard, and I'm moving into the value that I would normally draw or write with. So I'm just pushing out and then flicking it over. Cut all my whites. Just a little bit darker in the center. Much better. Start my 3 value. Make sure I fill out the whole entire space. I kind of see a distinct line there, so I'm just going back in and rubbing a little bit more value in there. And work back on my 3 again. Go over it in a different way to catch all those white spots. I got a nice smooth number 3. Do my press and flick for 3, making it really, really soft and light. So that pencil gets loosey-goosey in your hand. If it helps, lift that paper up. Try to make a softer transition here. Go over it a couple of times. Perfect. Now I do my super light number 2. Go that more or less to that line. And I press and flick until I get into that white. Just a nice soft transition. And if you guys want to make it even more smooth, another thing that you can do with your finger, although I don't prefer it, you can do it with your finger or a light tissue or even part of your clothing if you have darker clothing on. You can take it. So I'm going to take my pinky. I'm going to start at the dark side. I'm going to go in swirls, work down, and it helps smooth even more of the white dots that you had in there. If you feel like it, you don't have to. Or you can go from the light side to the dark side, either or. You just can't go from here and then pop over here because there'll be too much graphite on your finger. Okay, and then you can wash it off later. So it makes it nice and smooth. I really don't have any too terribly hard lines. I see a little bit right there. Go back in, a little bit more value to smooth it out. That way I don't see a distinct line. Maybe a little bit right here too. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the trick with our sphere at the bottom, what I was doing with our numbers up here, this is what helps me up here. So I'm going to draw the lines. You don't have to. This just helps me. So the center circle right here is a 1. These 2 that come out from the center circle, oops, right here, is going to be a 2. These 2 are going to be a 3. This one's going to be a 4. The skinny one that's right at the edge of the sphere is a 3. And then inside the shadow itself, I know that the example isn't perfect just because the copier is junk. And then our shadow should be a 5. So I have 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, or 2 3s, a 4, a 3 on the skinny one, and a 5. This helps me create a nice transition and makes it feel like the sphere has volume. So nice and light on my 2. I'm probably going to lift up my paper because that's my trick that helps me. And fill that whole ring in. Nice and smooth. If it helps, go in a different direction. Okay, starting to work on my 3. That's how I normally write with my pencil. I'm going to set my paper down. And if you want to create nice transitions in here, like smoothing all this out, you're more than welcome to do that. This is just to help you guys feel like it has volume, it has shape. We're just tricking our eye to make it look like it has shape in here. I'm going to catch all these white spots I'm missing. Okay, pretty good. Got it nice and smooth, and if I feel like going back in a different angle, I'm more than welcome to. Here's 3. It's a little bit darker. The reason why there's a ton of different stages is because next year you guys are going to practice doing even more values. So you're going to practice with your hands, getting more control over your muscles. So if you're more than welcome, like if you're good and comfortable doing different values, you're more than welcome to try it out. If you're not, just stick with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with this. Okay. The reason why we have to go a little bit lighter on that last ring is because if you look at something that's sitting on a table, as long as there's a lot of light in the room, what ends up happening is that you guys actually have a little bit of light that reflects off the table onto the bottom of the object itself, which creates this little halo of highlight. Go back and smooth all these out. And then we're going to work on our little halo. So we're just going to go back to that nice number 3 value and smooth it out. And then number 5 is our darkest dark. So I push as hard as I can without breaking that pencil lid. Making sure I catch all of my white spots. And once you have all that done, if you want to add or practice different things, you can even use them on the coloring sheets that I have over at the Space Poster. So what I do, like whenever I'm suggesting and helping out you guys with that, is whenever you see a black line, so if I have a flower, anytime that I see a black line is where I push really hard, and then I fade it out. So push really hard, fade it out, that kind of thing. So you can practice shading with color sheets too. I'm getting a lot of mess on the table because of my dirty finger from blending. And if you ever have that happen, you're also, it's like really easy because it's always soft. You can always erase all that out. There's not a lot of value, you're pushing hard. Okay, so erase all that out so I have a nice clean sheet, because we do have to think about our craft. That is part of your guys' grade, is craft. So that's me, like me, going back and making sure this fits inside my box. Make it look nice and neat. Okay, now that it's nice and neat, double check I got my name on it, date, period. I have these 4 or 5, well, technically I did 4, so I did 5 values. And then I have a nice blended transition strip, and then I have my sphere that is shaded. Once you have that, you guys are more than welcome to practice. You can work on another color sheet. You can add value to something else you've worked on. Also, if you guys want to use color, you can actually use color to create value as well. So pretend I'm still working on this flower and I'm working on my color sheet. I'm pushing really hard. The only problem with these guys is you just can't erase it. Pushing really hard on my black line. So you can add value basically with any material as long as it's like a softer lead. You can use those. And they always turn out really cool when you guys use value. Looks like it's got a lot of dimension. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please raise your hand. I'd be more than glad to help. You can even raise your hand during the video itself, or you need help with the worksheet afterwards. I'm okay with either or. And if you have any other problems, need other materials, just raise your hand as well, and I'll be glad to help you guys out. Thank you for watching. Bye.